I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Mail Call Mondays should fall on Memorial Day. So before we get started here, I just want to take a quick moment to remind you guys to stop and think about what Memorial Day is actually for. All too often people forget about it. They get caught up in all the barbecues and all the parties and all the events. And sometimes we forget that Memorial Day is actually a day for us to remember our service members who are no longer with us, those that gave the ultimate sacrifice to help ensure the freedoms that we have today. So please take a minute, stop and think about those that will never come home again, will never get a chance to enjoy barbecues with their family, and say a little prayer for them. Well, now, let's get on to the show. And the first thing I want to mention here is this is the Ruger 1022 project sitting in front of me. It hasn't gone away, it hasn't disappeared, it just got pushed to the sidelines just a little bit. But this is the way it sits in its current configuration. I think this is about where it was when we left off in the last episode. We had got some accuracy groups down with the regular barrel. We had just put in the Ruger BX trigger, and we had just dropped it into our Titan 1022 stock. Now, a couple of comments. First of all, the Ruger BX trigger, that should have come in the rifle out of the box. Ruger really is pulling a fast one there, making this trigger an aftermarket accessory. I don't know about you guys, but I would pay an extra 50 bucks, which I can't imagine it costs them any more than 50 bucks since all the parts are already there to put this trigger in the rifle coming out of the box. I shouldn't have to pay to upgrade this after the fact. It is a much cleaner, much lighter trigger pull than when it comes from the factory. Now, on the Titan 1022, we haven't gotten to the full review on the Titan 1022 stock from Victor Company, but I will tell you offhand, it is a really great addition. I can't necessarily say at this point that it has increased the accuracy of the system when you take that standing alone, but what I can tell you is it makes it easier for me to shoot the system to its mechanical accuracy. Part of that lends to the fact that we have an adult length of pull here. I'm not all crunched up on the rifle like the carbine stock that comes from the factory. And I have this nice vertical pistol grip angle which allows me to really get my trigger finger in there and get in a position on the trigger to get that nice straight back pull. So those alone are really nice features. Additionally, the Titan 1022 stock has an aluminum bedding block. We still have our one action screw up front here, but we have an additional screw in the back that will set the tension of the action into the inlet before we go to tighten that front screw. And getting that nice snug fit of the action down into the inlet really does help with that precision, that repeatability of the system. So we are going to get this guy back out to the range. We're going to do a little bit more shooting, and hopefully we will pick up from where we were. This whole project has just been plagued by issues. So hopefully we can get going, we can get back up to where it is, because the Ruger 1022s are really fun rifles to shoot. We still have the original sporter barrel in here, and this guy really shoots the lights out. For a lightweight sporter barrel, you wouldn't expect it to shoot as well as it does, but it really does. So we do have a Green Mountain bull barrel that will drop in here, and we'll see how well it shoots with that bull barrel as well. I don't know that we're actually going to be able to pull more accuracy than the factory barrel out, but I really can't wait to see. So that's the direction that we are going on this project, and we will get back into it soon. So keep up the comments, keep up the suggestions, and don't worry, we will get back to it. Now, our first question comes from Rob, and Rob asks, off topic, but John, I love your watch. What is it? And the watch that you guys saw in the last Mail Call Mondays and in a couple of our other videos is this one right here. This is a heavy water diver watch from Hazard 4, and this is a titanium case. It has tritium illumination in it, and it is a Swiss movement, and it is overall a really great watch. It's kind of big, so if you don't like big watches, that can be a problem, but it is actually designed to be a dive watch. So I'm used to large faces on dive watches, makes them a little bit easier to see when you're actually at depth. The tritium illumination on it is also great because it doesn't matter what the conditions are, I can glance at the watch, see what's going on. Now those of you that are super tactical, you know, tritium illumination, tritium is always on, it's always glowing. This stuff has a half-life of like 12 years or something. So if you're really worried about it, then you need to get one of those watch bands that covers it up. But I do wear it at work. I don't really think it's an issue of my position being compromised because I have tritium illumination on my watch. If you've ever been out in the jungle at night, or even in a lot of the woods at night, there's phosphorescence out there in the woods as well. So when it gets totally dark, you still see little bits here and there glowing. So I seriously doubt your watch is going to give you away. But you know, that stuff aside, overall I've been really impressed with this watch. We hadn't planned to do a full review on it, but if you want to, leave a comment down below and we may look at doing a full review. It's been really durable. I've only got a couple of scratches on the bezel so far, and that's simply from locking a buttstock into my shoulder and then shooting and having the buttstock ride across the face of the watch repeatedly. And all it has done is kind of polished up some of the matte finish on the bezel. The engravings on the bezel are really deep, so I don't have any worries about those coming loose. And the 12 o'clock point, the 0 point on the bezel, is a tritium vial as well. And it has this nice unidirectional bezel, so it's really easy to set it to 0 if you want to time something. So really like that feature. It comes with a regular rubber band, and then it also has a NATO band as well, and the band has a ton of adjustment on it. So if you need to put it on over a wetsuit, that's not a problem at all. I did take it whitewater kayaking. I didn't have any problems with it on that trip. I didn't expect to. I've not got a chance to actually take it down at depth. I hung up my fins a while back, and I'm in southern Indiana now, so I don't get a whole lot of chance to get down deep underwater. But you know, the next time I do, this will more than likely be the watch that's on my wrist. So overall, really impressed with it. If you guys want to know more, leave a comment down below and we'll look at doing the full review on it. Hazard 4 was nice enough to send one out to us just to kind of get our impressions on it. They really didn't ask for a full review. They didn't ask for anything else, and we're not receiving any compensation for it. They just kicked the watch out to us to see what we thought about it. And so far I've been pretty impressed. And you guys have asked about it, so I figured I'd let you know the skinny on the watch. Our next question comes from Nick. And Nick asks, going through your videos, but just so much content, what's your opinion on Ballistol for cleaning firearms? Any issues with it that you know of? Just so many opinions and so many different products from Hops, CLP, M Pro, etc. Let me know. By the way, I just love how you break down the timing in your videos so you can just jump to the section you're interested in. Great job. Well, thanks for your comments, Nick. As far as Ballistol, I haven't really heard anything bad about it. Nothing jumps out at me. I think I have used it a time or two in the past, but I haven't used it exclusively on anything, so I really can't comment. But you bring up a really good point. There is so much out there. Everybody's got their favorite stuff. Really, because lubricants are fairly cheap, the best way to go about it is just buy a small amount of it. Grab a can of brake cleaner, blow all the old lube out of whatever you're using it in. Lube your gun up and see how it works for you. Make sure you test it in a wide range of climates and see how it works. Ballistol, I believe, is a petroleum-based product. You're probably not going to have any problems with it. But if you decide to switch to something like Frog Lube or some of the other non-petroleum products, make sure you thoroughly clean all the old stuff out. A lot of that specialty lubricants, they don't like to mix with other lubricants, and you can run into gelling problems or all kind of other issues. So grab some, take it out, give it a try. Our next question comes from Ryan, and Ryan asks, what's the best book to read to get started on long-range precision shooting? Well, Ryan, I've read a bunch of books over the years, and the problem is a lot of the books that I read prior to getting to where I am now, a lot that I read prior to going into military service and while I was in military service, really have some landmines of misinformation in them. They've got some good stuff, they've got some good fundamental things in them, but then sometimes they just kind of totally skew off the reservation, and you end up with some bad things or some garbage that has been reprinted and repeated out of military manuals that was incorrect to begin with. So I'm hesitant to recommend any of those to new shooters because you won't have the skill set to recognize the good and the bad parts. One book that I can recommend, I have not finished it yet. I am in the process of reading it for a review, but I know the man that's putting it in here, and I know the research that he goes into it, so I think I can recommend it without actually having finished the book yet. And it's Snipercraft by John C. Simpson. John knows more than most people. I think John's forgotten more than most people will ever know about sniping and about long-range rifle employment. Now, John has a previous book, the Sniper's Notebook, that was available. He was self-published. It was available direct through him, but it was available only to professional snipers, military and law enforcement snipers, and you had to order it through him, and you had to prove that you were actually a professional. The reason for that is he talked about some tactics, and there were some other things in the book that he didn't want just released out to the general public. Now, I know the arguments back and forth on that, but the fact of the matter is it was his book. He gets to decide how it goes out and who the target audience is on it. But the good news is this book, Snipercraft, is available through Paladin Press and is available to the general public. There isn't really anything about tactics in here. It's more about techniques and fundamentals and positions and all that fun stuff that you need to know, regardless of if you are a basic beginner or you're a more advanced student of the gun. So John he comes down to Snipercraft just about every year. He is a wealth of information, so I can recommend his book without actually having finished it. However, when we finish it, we will do a full review for you guys, both a short video review, and we'll knock out a review on our website. So look forward to that, and that is Snipercraft by John C. Simpson on Paladin Press, and we'll leave a link in the description down below. Our next question is from Lucky Duck 13, and he asks, what barrel contour do you prefer for matches? I typically run MTU or M24, but I'm considering going smaller to save a little weight. Well, having carried a M40A1 with an M40 contour for a very long time, and those barrels are at 24 inches, I was not really interested in getting into heavy barrels when I got back into precision shooting. I kind of stuck with the Remington Varmint, Remington Sendero contour. It's about a, I believe, Bartley number 13 is about the same. Those contours are what I like to run because they are heavy enough to give you the precision that you need through high volume strings of fire. But they are light enough that you don't have any problems getting them into position, getting them in and out of different barricades or really different messed up situations that you can be put in at a PRS match. Now, some guys prefer the heavier weight barrels because they feel that it's easier to hold them steady. There really may be some credence to that. A heavier rifle, it really has less tendency to move around. That's just Newton's law. A body at rest tends to stay at rest until acted upon by an outside force. So a more massive barrel will have more tendency or more resistance to your force. But I just really don't like lugging a big heavy chunk of metal hanging out on the front of my rifle. So I tend to go to the lighter weights. And with the way PRS matches are set up, you're really not losing anything going with a slightly lighter barrel. Now, if you were going with bench rest, obviously you're going to want to stick the heaviest barrel that you can stick on there and still make your weight class and still be within the rules. But as far as PRS matches where most of what you're shooting is not on your belly or it's not in a rest, being able to hold that rifle steady for longer really has some benefit. So that's my preference. That doesn't necessarily make it the right way to go, but I don't think you're losing any accuracy by going to a slightly lighter barrel. Now, I would not go anything less than a Remington Sendero, because then I think you're going to start running into issues with the heat. You're going to run into issues where occasionally you may have to put pressure on the barrel. So I wouldn't go any lighter than the actual Sendero or number 13 profile. Our next question comes from Shot Over. He asks, John, I'm planning on a new barrel for my Gap rifle that's currently in 308. When it starts to go downhill and I'm thinking on going with a 260 barrel, what's your thoughts on the 260? Glad to see you back on the tube. Well, as some of you guys know, I went over my current primary match rifle, and that is actually a Remington 700 with a 260 barrel on it. And it's a Bartlein 260 that was spun up for me by Southern Indiana Precision, and it's currently running in a KRG Whiskey 3 chassis. The 260, I think, is a great match cartridge. If you're not getting into all the cutting edge craziness, then the 260 gives you the benefits of the high BC 6.5 millimeter bullets. It gives you a moderate barrel life. You're not burning out barrels like you do with a 6-dasher or a 243 or 6 Creedmoor or any of those. You're getting a little bit longer barrel life, but still not as good a barrel life as you get with a 308. But I think the 260 is a very competitive round for PRS style competition, and I don't really see any reason to switch up to anything different until I've smoked that barrel out. So 260 is definitely a good option. 6.5 Creedmoor is also a good option, and we've talked about those back and forth, 260 versus 6.5 Creed. And a lot of it comes down to what kind of factory ammo you want to shoot, what kind of brass you want to reload with, that kind of stuff, because each one kind of has their merits, and we've covered that in a couple of different videos, so make sure you go back and take a look at that. You didn't mention if your Gap rifle is a semi-auto or a bolt gun. I'm going to assume, since you didn't mention, that it's a bolt gun, and 260 will work great for that. If you're talking about a gas gun, though, you may want to look a little bit closer at 6.5 Creedmoor, since that cartridge was optimized to function out of semi-automatic magazines and in a semi-automatic action. So take a look at the 6.5 Creed if you're talking about a gas gun. And our next question comes from Matt, and he says, would you cover proper length of pull and advice on non-adjustable chassis? Matt, on non-adjustable chassis, first of all, I don't know that I would really want to go with a truly non-adjustable chassis. I think one of the big advantages of chassis systems is being able to dial that in specifically for your body type. Now, if it's a chassis system that uses spacers versus a toolless type system or a quick adjust system, that's fine. If you're the only one that's going to be shooting the rifle, it's fairly easy for you to get the length of pull dialed in to right where you need it for the majority of shooting situations that you're going to run into. Now, you do kind of have a little bit of difference in length of pull in your different positions. If you're shooting from a barricade, shooting more upright versus shooting prone, your length of pull is going to change. What I suggest, though, when you're setting up length of pull for a rifle, and eye relief as well, because they kind of go hand in hand, I suggest starting with a length of pull that if you put the buttstock in the crook of your arm, then your trigger finger at a natural relaxed 90-degree angle fits right on the face of the trigger. That, to me, is the appropriate length of pull to start with. Get that set, and then set the eye relief of your scope from prone. So once you get all that dialed in, then you're good to go for a fixed setup. And on fixed setups like the setup you see here, that's where I will leave it with that length of pull and with the scope set for me where it's in the perfect eye relief when I'm in the prone position. The reason I do that is when you are taking the long range or the most accurate shot you can possibly take, you're probably going to be in the prone position. When you start to get up from the prone position, you're making sacrifices in position, you're making sacrifices due to speed, a variety of other things, sacrifices in support, so you are not going to be as stable as you are down prone. So then, we can worry about all the different things that come into that. And if you are running a quick adjust butt pad, then you'll have the ability to adjust it for those various different positions and mark those adjustments down in your data book or mark them on the stock depending upon the system. That way you can, if you know, okay, I'm going to shoot this barricade stage and I'm mostly going to be upright or kneeling to standing, then I can knock that butt pad down to where it needs to be for those positions. If I'm going back to prone, I can put it back into the prone position and you'll be good to go there. That way your scope stays set in the same position and you adjust the eye relief with the butt pad, if that makes sense. But for a fixed, non-quick adjustable stock, that old trick with the length of your forearm, setting it, is where I like to go for starting off my length of pull. And there's nothing set in stone that says you can't adjust it after that based on your comfort level, based upon your specific body type, your neck length, the construction of your face. All that stuff plays a role in how you set up your length of pull. So that's just a guideline to start with, and then roll with it from there. And our last question comes from John. And John asks, "Hey John, wondering if you've used the HOG Saddle or variants in PRS type stages. Much appreciated the reviews and experience on MCM. Get out and shoot." Well, John, I haven't used the HOG Saddle in PRS, but I did use it up at the Oregon Sniper Challenge. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, the HOG Saddle is a really nice CNC machined aluminum clamp that allows you to fit it to the top of a tripod, can't speak today, and clamp the fore end of your rifle into that tripod. When I shot at the Oregon Sniper Challenge, one of the stages we had to run up this hill out in the desert and then make shots uphill on steel plates halfway up. And the way I did that is I set up my HOG Saddle ready to go so I could just drop the rifle into it and turn it to clamp it down. I already had it somewhat extended, so I just ran up, dropped my pack, grabbed the rifle, dropped it in the saddle, and shot. The key thing there was it was necessary to use that type of rig because of the brush and the scrub on the ground. You would have never been able to go prone. And looking at the height of the sage before we started the stage, I was pretty sure that even if I dropped my Eberly stock pack down and laid it across the top of the Eberly stock, I wouldn't be able to get high enough to get the shot that I needed. So the HOG Saddle saved me there. I actually did halfway decent on that stage and really wouldn't have been able to do as well without the HOG Saddle. So I have used it for that. I do like to bring it along on PRS matches because occasionally I'll see a problem where I think that will work very well. The problem is the way they have started setting stages up is you don't have any time to get out and kind of get into position or try out the stage. So it's difficult to know how I'm going to set up the tripod before I go into that stage. And then it ends up being one of those where I would rather take a body position or take bags up or something of that nature versus wasting the time on the stage to set up the tripod. So it doesn't get used as often as it could. Now, if you switch that over to a law enforcement side or professional sniper side, the HOG Saddle is an absolutely invaluable tool because it really allows you to get the rifle clamped in. It'll get you set up on some really, really funky positions. And once you get the rifle locked in and on position, then if you need to come out of the scope, to mess with your comms, to mess with your data book, to do something, to get a drink of water, to get a candy bar, any of that stuff. If something happens and you need to get back on the gun, it's dialed right back in. You just grab it and you're right there. You're set up. So it is a great tool for the professional sniper. So I really can't recommend them enough. They are a great item to be able to have in your toolbox. And we'll leave a link to the HOG Saddle down below. That is it for our questions today. We're trying to knock this out really quick because tonight we're packing our gear, and tomorrow our Memorial Day starts our family vacation, and we will be heading out into the woods as a family, and I will be far and away from any social media, any electronic contact. Hopefully, that's the hope. Although cell towers are just about everywhere nowadays, we will see. So hopefully we're going to spend about a week out on the trail backpacking with the family, and hopefully everyone will come back intact and sane, because that's important too. If you've got any questions you'd like to have answered on next Mail Call Mondays, leave them in the comments section below. If you got any questions or comments on anything that we've done, leave in the comments section below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. And until next time, get out and shoot!